you. Okay, we'll get the July 8th DRC started. And can't believe we're already halfway through the year. It seems like it's flying. So, okay, for the agenda today, we've got two items to review. The first is a review of a proposed townhome development directly on, basically on 200 North and 400 East. This is a property that's directly north of the existing Macy's building. Maybe if I can pull the right one up. No, sure. There we go. And so 4th East, 200 North. This development did have a previous review that had been done. It had received preliminary approval previously. However, they've come back and requested a change to the layout and the housing product type. Before it was apartments. They've switched to townhome units. It's condos, thank you, sorry. Condos on there, they've been switched and adjusted to townhome units. So there is a development agreement tied to this, and that was amended previously as well and approved by the city council. And so this is a preliminary review of this application after that development agreement went through the city council and was approved by them. And so the action today by the DRC would be to either approve with conditions or table, depending on red line comments would need to be addressed there. So with that, we'll go around the DRC with any comments or questions that DRC members may have. So with Aspen.
Will you just make sure to include landscape and irrigation plans that were not included in this submittal?
Okay.
That's our major comment from planning.
Okay. Jared Shepard with building.
Not at this time. I don't think we have anything.
Okay. Addressing will be taken care of with a final plat on that one. Ryan with fire.
So I just had a couple questions, comments. Right there on 400 East coming in, you've got a median dividing, basically pushing everybody to go right hand on 400 East. Is that correct? How tall is that? That little thing right there. The only reason I ask is when we get to your drawing with the fire department apparatus approaching, it shows that we're going to have to run over that to make it in with our ladder truck. So it's got to be either that or the little plastic pipes that if you hit, they just tip over, right, so that we can get in there. Because even your red and green lines, we're going to be going over that. With the new ladder truck coming, I don't want to damage it because it takes almost 4 years to get a new one. So, and then if you can scroll over to, show me the east side, John, just a little bit of that. Where you've got the turnaround, I appreciate that, but you've got this covered parking right by 62, 63. Can you shift that to the south a little bit? You can see that green line is going to take out that covered parking stall when we're trying to back up right there. If you can just shift those covered parkings to the south a little bit, then we're not going to hit them and take them out with our vehicle. Then the only other thing that I saw that we wanted to address was all your fire hydrants are on the outside of the property, but yet you have a water line coming in. We're going to need 3 hydrants added on the inside of this. And the reason for that is once we pull in and we shut the road down, we don't have any other access. If we take a fire hydrant, we can't get another vehicle in there. So we need to have 3 hydrants, and they're just can be put right into the little parking stall medians, right? It's hard to see in that small thing. There we go. If you can just add 3 simple hydrants right there.
Do these replace the exterior ones?
You're still going to need exterior, but you need those interior as well. The distance from some of those exterior, like right where it says 200 North, or even right there by Heath's Farms into the south, 86, 85, 72, far exceeds the length that we're going to require. So you can just put them right on those parking islands, then it's not really taking out any spot. Other than that, I don't see any other issues.
Do you want them out there? Do you want to tuck them in a little closer so you don't get hit?
Just somewhere in that general vicinity. If they're better up against, the problem is I thought that this was a sidewalk here, so if they're out here, they're a little bit easier.
Okay.
But just need those hydrants on the inside of the property.
Okay. Anything else, Ryan?
Not at this time.
Jason Calloway, Public Works.
Just the biggest thing I can see is just making sure after they put in all the utilities, extending the sewer, water, PI, that we make sure we get a good road back. That we're just not dealing with patch trenches on that road. I think we addressed that.
Yep, we do have a comment on that one.
Yeah.
So
Other than that, I don't have any other issues. So.
okay, Jason Bond, administration.
Yeah, maybe just a couple questions for the applicant. And I'm making some assumptions here, but it looks like you've got the front doors kind of facing out towards the street on all the units, and then in the parking lot there's a little kind of a back deck or something that you show there. Is that assumption right? The orientation of these units?
Yes.
Okay.
I know that was a confident yes.
If we could, for any answer to the questions, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone for, that way we can make sure we're catching in the minutes appropriately. So
Yeah, and I think that was my only question for you. So Jimmy said yes, that the front of the units are facing out towards the street, and the back of the units will be towards the parking lot. So I think that's probably something for addressing that we'll want to think about. I mean, the interior units will be a little bit tricky, but I don't know. It's something I think can help. Along those lines, at some point, and this can happen whenever. I think you've gone through this before, but we'll need to have ARC review, architectural review of the units. I'm assuming they're probably going to be kind of consistent with Helis Farms, which is just in the north, another product that Hive Homes did. So if you can get those submitted, we'll get that meeting set up and get that looked at as soon as possible. I appreciate. I think Aspen reviewed the amenities. The ratio of amenities probably still works in line with the development agreement. Appreciate that you maintain the pedestrian access to the south of the property so that the residents here can get quick access to the grocery store and to Ace Hardware as needed. Aside from that, I don't really have any other comments at this time.
okay, the first question that I would have is the intention to build this all as one phase, or is it going to be phased? Is just kind of curious on that.
We're planning on doing it in 3 phases.
In 3 phases.
Yep.
Okay, we'll just need an updated phasing plan showing that.
I think we have that on page
Is it?
7.
Did I miss it?
I saw one.
Maybe I just missed it. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, sounds good. That answered that one that I had. And then, okay. We've already talked about the landscaping. We'll just need basically a detailed amenities plan for that to show when, basically that they meet our code. Fortunately, say
Specs on
the spec. So this is not city-owned park. This is just making sure it meets the code for amenities within development. So there's some recommendations we'd have, but there's nothing necessarily that says they have to put, what's the material we put down on playgrounds now? It's escaping my mind.
Oh, it's the
Softer, the
the
pour
rubber.
In place type,
pour in place.
pour and play type things. None of that's required because this is private parks equipment and such. So,
Is the amenity plans to be included with the landscaping plan, or is it separate from that?
you can include that with the landscaping plans in one set there. That would be fine.
Okay.
And then let's see here. I'll just kind of one small comment that kind of helps with it. It looks like some of the layers in the drawing were overlapped a little bit. Because an example is here, that arrow for the 8 is covered up by the asphalt patch through there. I believe this leader here it's assumed that that's saying that's the trash enclosure. So just little cleanup items like that is pretty straightforward. One thing you did want to confirm is the meter sizing. Some of these units, where you have maybe 3 or 4, 3 units to 1.5 inches would probably be adequate to account for that. But some of these ones that are 7 units or more, a 1.5 inch meter may not be adequately sized for that. So they need to have a 2-inch meter for that. So just kind of verify that that's the case. We also need some details on the fence that runs along the specifically the south border of it, that masonry wall. Just provide the detail on that masonry wall.
Is there any specific thing on that masonry wall that the city requires?
Yeah, in our fencing code, we have some examples of fencing that are encouraged. It's not anything that's too elaborate or anything, but kind of standard fencing examples. We can provide that to you if you'd like, but yeah, I think we just want to make sure that you're not doing some crazy, fence, which I don't think you are, but we just need to verify that.
Can it be the type of fence that like we put around Helix Farms?
Probably, yeah. If Helix Farms was approved, then I would assume that that's probably something that you could do down here as well.
Okay.
Yep. We haven't finished our review of the storm drain report, but we will have that finished up and provide any red line comments on that and regarding the storm drain for the site. And then I'm going the wrong way. Let's see here. That was right there. That's just a note that needs to go on all plats, basically saying we're an agricultural community. And as such, there's agricultural activity down the road. So, and then I think that's one comment is kind of what Jason had mentioned earlier, just with the extent of the road cuts it's going to be along there, that would need, granted that 25 feet would take care of the road, but just plan on putting a 2-inch overlay over the top of that road when we're finished up on it. So, and that'll also be the case for 500 East as well.
Okay.
So with that, there aren't any other major comments or questions that we had aside from there. And so if there's not anything else or any other comments or discussions or questions, look for a motion.
John, I think the red lines are relatively minor. I would make a recommendation that we recommend approval to the Planning Commission on the Cortland townhomes, with the condition that these red lines be addressed before they go to the Planning Commission, so the Planning Commission has a cleaner set to look at, and some of those little errors are taken care of.
Okay. Got a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ryan. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll send these red line comments, anything else over to you, and get them cleaned up. It can go to Planning Commission.
Jimmy,
So,
I want to thank you for keeping that thing weed free and reduce the fire hazard there. I appreciate that.
You guys know when our Planning Commission meetings are, second and fourth Tuesdays. I mean, when we can get your plans and we got the red lines addressed on them, we'll get you on the quickest Planning Commission that we can get you on.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a review of a proposed data center. The Summit Data Center, this is located in the south side of Santaquin. Basically, as far south as you want, still remain within Santaquin city limits. Essentially, Summit Ridge Parkway is located just north, and then you head south towards Uive County, and that's where the site's located. This is a first review of this application by the DRC. We have provided previous comments, just kind of offline of the DRC historically, and this is the first DRC review this. Say it is a proposed data center located down there, and it is a site plan review. So the DRC is the approval body for this application, and will be, and say the DRC is the approval body for that. So potential motions are approve condition, or table to have red line comments addressed. One kind of major item I'll kind of go over first is really in regards to culinary water, providing for that, which also includes fire suppression and required fire flows for that. And so we have had our consulting firm that maintains our water modeling, water model that we have. We contract with them. That's Hanson Allen Luce. We use them to help model this potential use down there and get a recommendation from them regarding what we can do to ensure we have the appropriate fire flows and pressures needed to meet our code and state code. And so they came back with a few different scenarios that they reviewed, and this is the one that was recommended by them to ensure we can meet those flows. It is based off of similar options that were provided by the applicant to give an idea of how to do that. So the model came back and indicated that if with this line here that kind of runs south off of Summit Ridge Parkway, below we've got a pressure reducing valve, or a PRV, located up here kind of on the top of the hill, and it comes down and would run south approximately along the railroad right of way, and then would come across and come into the site. One proposal was to provide a 12-inch, but after remodeling it would probably need to have a 16-inch diameter pipe to be able to do that, and that would run that whole length. And once it got into the site, it would split off to both a 10-inch line that would go north to provide looping, and then a 12-inch line that would loop around and catch the upper building. And also to do that, there would be the existing 10-inch water line that runs along the frontage road. Well, once it reaches the development, that would need to be upsized to a 10-inch to make it into there, to be able to serve those units. The rest of the shown utility lines can remain the same size as proposed by the applicant. But these areas here were identified as needing to be larger pipe diameters to provide that 2,700 gallons a minute fire flow, and also be able to maintain the minimum pressures. So that's the after reviewing the report that we received from Hanson Allen Luce on the modeling there, this is the recommended route that the city would do based on these plans. Recognize it's not the only route that we could go, but we can also look at other options as well. So, but that's kind of a quick summary of the report that we received from Hanson Allen Luce on that. And so just so everyone's aware, if there's any questions or anything on that, I kind of went over it fairly quickly, but I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to what those findings were. If we don't have any, we'll go around the DRC for comments.
The first submittal we got from you guys had the landscape and photometric and irrigation plans, but the second submittal did not have those. I don't know if you've addressed the previous red lines, but if not, those do need to be taken care of.
Okay, anything else? Jared?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Ryan?
So you've addressed bringing in the second water line to meet the fire flow. The only other question I have, and you may not know the answer yet, is when it comes to your sprinkler design of that building, typically a warehouse this size is going to have multiple risers in that. and your fire hydrant is required to be within 100 feet of each riser room. And so you may need to add extra hydrants depending on where those riser rooms are, or if you can do a hydrant with 2 riser rooms close, you know what I mean? And so you might want to work with your proposed sprinkler contractor and kind of get a layout so that if you have to add extra hydrants, you're adding them in during the water line project instead of paving and then having to cut them back in. So other than that, I don't see any concerns. You've addressed a few that I had, so ours are very minimal. Thank you.
Jason?
I know there's a note on there to discuss the ownership, and if that new water line, the new 16-inch water line coming from the PRV is going to be ours, it'll have to be built to our standards with valves at the appropriate distances and fire hydrants. That's the only thing I have that I could see. And then
To build on that real quick, Jason, sorry. It's either way, I believe that line should be installed to city standards anyway.
okay.
Whether or not at this point in time we take ownership of it or if it's a private line, either way, it still needs to be built to Santaquin City specifications. And a couple of reasons for that. It's one, it could potentially become ours anyway in the future once that develops. Also because of the fire flows requirements and that needs on there, so make sure that public safety can take care of it in the event that it needs to. You know, if there's an emergency here, that we know it's going to be in good. It would be installed appropriately and should be able to have the longest lifespan as possible with that. So
Yeah.
it's still we'll still make sure it's installed to city specifications.
Yeah, and well, as that land develops to the north, it probably makes sense for the city to maintain it and operate it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else?
I know that's a 256,000 square foot building and a 2-inch water meter running into it. You guys okay with that? You took a look at that? I guess I don't know what the needs are.
Yeah, generally speaking, it doesn't require a lot of water other than the fire flows,
Okay,
which will be handled through the risers. We don't consume a lot of water.
okay, perfect. Good to know. Thank you.
It's safe to say, John, that there's just a little bit of office space there, and you're not using water for cooling anything in there. It's
We do use water for cooling, just not evaporating it.
right.
Which means once we have our water, we can charge the system,
Right.
and it just uses flushing toilets and
Hmm.
your minimal water needs for an office.
Okay, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, on a center like that, how many people are in there on a daily basis? Just out of curiosity.
It's going to be anywhere between 100 people to 300 people.
Okay.
Those sometimes. This is a co-location.
Hey, John, we are calling.
Oh, sorry. You guys said that
Oh, yeah,
in the
thanks.
previous. We've been talking so comfortably. Yeah. So we may see as little as 40, and that's like your basic skeleton shift that you would hold 24 hours. But then you have your customers that come in, and that's what the office is for. The customers come in like Visa, MasterCard, Netflix, whoever is the customer, and they'll have 5 potentially people for them, and that's what some of that office space is. So they might be there some time of the week, sometimes they might be off-site. So
Thank you. I was just curious to know what the impact was, but it sounds like it's pretty minimal.
Jason Bond, anything?
I don't have much else to add. Obviously, we have a few red lines on there, relatively minor considering the magnitude of this site plan. Obviously, there's some technical details that I know still need to be worked out, but they're mostly with engineering. So, yeah, with the last agenda item that we had, I don't think there's a requirement for architectural review in the CLM zone, but I think per the development agreement, there was some things that are more internal review of how the buildings look that we'll take care of. So I don't think there's any formal ARC review or approval that's needed there, but we'll just continue to work with you on that. And like I say, the remaining red lines there, I think we can work through with them, with engineering and a little bit of planning comments that were made for landscaping and stuff like that. But all in all, I think for the magnitude of this site plan, it's pretty good.
One other thing, sorry. have some of my guys who work with other jurisdictions that have large data centers, and they made the recommendation, and obviously it's not a site plan thing, but the doors be labeled. We found like out at the Facebook in Eagle Mountain that when they're responding on calls, there's so many doors, they don't know where to go. And so they were labeled like on the west side, 1 through 6, W 1 through 6, and 1 through 4. And that way when the caller tells them, we're at this door, we can find you. Otherwise, we're walking around a pretty large building. So if you can label those, and that's something down the road I can work with you on.
Okay. I'll go through, just wanted to make a note that the site is served by a lift station for their wastewater, which it's not a city-owned one, and there's not necessarily concern with them doing that for the specific site. So just kind of a heads up to everyone on that one. Other than that, I don't believe there's any other comments that we haven't made it through yet. In that relation, just and make sure we include within the motion, they are proposing a drive approach that is wider than 30 feet. I don't necessarily have an issue with having it being 40 feet. We just have to make sure that that's included within the motion, that having that access be wider than 30 feet. And then just kind of a question for dumpster location, whether or not there's going to be a centralized trash enclosure. If there is, again, it does need to meet the be similar in architectural materials for the building itself. So, I believe that was pretty much most of the main comments that we had on here. Okay, so with that, if there's not any other comments or questions related to this by the DRC or anyone, I would make sure I would look for a motion. Oh, we've already talked about that. Yeah, I believe that should be it. So if there's not any other comments or questions, I would look for a motion.
John, I'll make a motion that we approve the Summit Data Center site plan with the conditions that an exception be granted for the width of the drive access, that it be allowed to have 40 foot wide, which is 10 feet more than what our code, our standard is, and that the red lines be addressed, keeping in mind that there's a lot of technicality still that need to be worked out from more of an engineering perspective, and then all of the red lines be addressed for this site plan to move forward.
Okay. Got a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Jason Calloway. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. The site plan is approved with conditions, and so we'll get these comments over to you. You can work on getting them addressed, and we can work towards getting it built.
Good deal. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate your help.
Look forward to working with you.
Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the review of the June 24th DRC minutes. If there aren't any comments on that one, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Aspen. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. And if there's nothing else,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
sweet. We are adjourned at 10:29.